Welcome to the Solo Grind, where we shine a light on the raw and real journey of being a solo entrepreneur. I am Teresa, your guide on this adventure of going it alone, without a safety net and without the rule book. The grind is real, my friend, and so are the wins, the freedom, and the joy of building success on your own terms. I'm here to debunk the myths, share some laughs, and share what it takes to thrive as a go-getter, busy, doing it all entrepreneur. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Solo Grind. Today, we are going to start the conversation for March, which is all about marketing our businesses, which as a solo entrepreneur is often a mystifying, confusing, and a horrific topic to dive into. So I'm going to do my best this month to simplify it and give you some approaches that not only are tried and true by yours truly, but recognized in the world of marketing as some of the best ways to get your name out there, get your business out there, and start bringing in those clients that you are dreaming about. So the first one, of course, that we want to talk about here is personal branding. We hear a lot about branding. And when you hear people talk about branding, they're talking about logos and color palettes and maybe fonts. And all of that is definitely part of building a solid business foundation. But my friend, that is honestly just the beginning, and it is a very small part of your brand. The real magic in branding is creating a reputation, ideally one that stands out and gets noticed in a busy crowd of competitors. If you are a solo entrepreneur and mostly just a one person show, or you're just getting started in business, you are not going to want to miss this episode. But first, if we are meeting for the very first time, it is such an honor to meet you. I am Teresa Schloop, the original caffeine creative, and my mission is simply this: to help others stand out rather than blending in. And I do this by creating customized websites, personal branding strategies, and digital marketing that authentically reflects the incredible people behind the brand. And as you see here at this moment or here, I am also a podcast host. That is something that is completely a labor of love. I honestly remember being alone on this journey, and I remember how overwhelming it could be, feeling like you had no place to go and no one to talk to. And through this show, it is my hope and dream that others around me realize that they aren't on this crazy journey of entrepreneurship alone. It is an incredible and amazing journey, and I am here each week to have the conversation with you. And if you want to continue the conversation, check out my show notes for how to reach out. You can text me, book a call, or shoot me an email. I'm available and I respond personally to every single inquiry. So, with that, let's move on to the show. And I want to share the most important thing about today's episode that I want you to take away and remember. And that is, you, my friend, are your best marketing strategy. You could be an incredible interior designer whose designs are nothing short of phenomenal. Maybe you are a writer who crafts engaging, heartwarming stories that feel like a hug. Or maybe you are a coach who has the ability to inspire your clients to greatness. You could be all of these things. But if you don't have a personal brand that gets noticed in the best possible way, you are missing out, and the people you are meant to serve don't know you exist. Personal branding is necessary if you are running a business, freelancing, or showing up online in any capacity. So, in this episode, I am going to dive into what personal branding actually means and why it is not just about the aesthetics, how to define what makes you stand out in your industry, why people connect with you before they ever care about what you have to offer, how to show up online in a way that feels authentic, not forced. And we're going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes that I have seen people make with their personal branding and how you can avoid them. So, grab a sip of coffee, and let's dive into the first point that I want to get to. And what is personal branding and why should you care? Excuse me. Plain and simple, personal branding is the reputation that you create. It is how people describe you when you are not in the room. It's not just about what you do or what you provide as a service. It is about how you do it and how you make people feel when they interact with you. I want you to look beyond the trade that you are so skilled in and dig deeper, because there are a lot of people who can do what you do, but no one can do it quite like you. For example, there are a lot of web designers out there. There are a lot of amazing web designers out there. I am actually friends with some really incredible, amazing web designers. Okay. Could they step in and do things for my clients if I wasn't around? Could they fill that hole and that need as a web design? Absolutely. They could create beautiful designs. However, the way that they work with their clients, the process that they follow, the steps that they take, the approach, the tools, all of these things are very different than me. Is the end result phenomenal? Absolutely, because I wouldn't have friends that suck at anything. But it's the process of getting there, which is the reason why some people decide I'm the best fit for them, and others go with people like my friend Robin or Kate, because of how we make them feel when they interact with us. That is the key to personal branding. Your personal brand is your secret ingredient that sets you apart, builds trust, creates meaningful connections with your audience. Okay. Now, all of that being said, here is something that I want you to remember, because as a new entrepreneur, I see this happen all the time. I did this too. We hesitate to get out there and create our personal brand. We want to hide behind our logo and our business name. And we think that we don't need a personal brand to build a business. What you don't realize is that your personal brand is being built, whether you are intentional about it or not. Every single post that you create, every client conversation that you have, every time somebody recommends you to a friend, every time you show up at a networking event or show up in some way to represent your business, you are shaping your personal brand. The question that I want you to ask yourself is, are you shaping it with purpose, or are you just letting it happen? So think about that. Let's pause for just a moment, because I want you to really think about this. And I want you to answer these questions honestly. So if you need to grab some paper, pause, grab some paper, and I want you to journal about this or really give some thought to it, because this is important. Ask yourself, first of all, what do people say about me when I leave the room? If you aren't sure what people are saying about you, then ask your clients, ask your friends, ask your colleagues. Hopefully, you've got a bestie like me who is going to be straight up honest with you and tell you even when it's something you maybe don't want to hear, because we need to know those things. Take a look at the reviews that people have posted or shared about you, or testimonials, and start looking for themes of that. One of the things that I've always wanted to create is, when I'm working with my clients, I want them to sit down and feel like they're having coffee with a trusted friend. This is a big reason why coffee is part of my brand, because that's what I want to portray. I want that comfortable, cozy coffee break vibe, so that we can sit there, talk about what's going on in the world, and solve the world's problems in our own corner of the world. That's what I want to create. And that is how I naturally became the caffeine creative, because that is the vibe that I strove to create when working with my clients. So ask yourself, what do people say about me when I leave the room? All right. Jot down anything that comes to mind, even if you've heard it before, jot it down again, because that is how you're going to start seeing some themes come through. The next question that I want you to ask yourself is, what's the one thing people always compliment me on in business? One of the things that I am often complimented on in my testimonials, reviews, just conversations with clients, is that I stop and I listen. That is such a powerful core part of who I am and my own personal core values is I want my clients to feel seen and heard. And so the fact that that shows up consistently in when people compliment me tells me that I am right on brand, I'm right on point, and I'm very authentic in who I am. The next question that I want you to answer is, if someone had to describe my business in one sentence, what would I want them to say? And this is such a fun one. And actually, just recently, I shifted in my own messaging a little bit and my own branding and kind of went a little bit of a new direction. And it was because in conversations with my friend Robin, another web designer, who's actually been on the show. She's fabulous. She, in our conversation, we were talking about things because my branding was starting to feel off. It was feeling forced and it wasn't feeling genuine. And I knew I had to make a shift. And Robin just simply said, Teresa, you're the business bestie. And when she said that to me, it was so powerful because that's exactly what I am. I am my client's business bestie. I want to help them. I want to do what I can to make their life simpler and easier so that they can focus on their skill to make their corner of the world a better place. And that's what she described for me. So ask the people around you who know you and your business well. Don't ask the people who don't really know your business. We've talked about this before. My husband, he is not the person that I would ask. Yes, he knows I'm a web designer and he has a vague idea of what I do, but he doesn't know the heart and soul of my business because he's not my dream client and I'm not communicating with him and my message doesn't mean much to him. So think of the people that get it, okay? Your bestie, a colleague, a client that you really resonated with. Ask them these questions and I'll repeat them again just for clarity's sake. And you can also find them in our detailed show notes. The links to that are going to be in the show notes in whatever listener you're on. So let's repeat those questions. First one, what do people say about me when I leave the room? The second one is, what's the one thing people always compliment me on in business? And the third is, if someone had to describe my business in one sentence, what would I want them to say? Okay. Those are very powerful questions that are going to help you dig deep and find out what really truly makes you unique. Because trust me, my friends, your uniqueness is what attracts the right clients to you. Okay. Your brand isn't just what you say about yourself. It's about what others say about you. And the best way to influence that is to show up as yourself consistently. And we only do that when we get clear and honest about how we are perceived and intentionally create the perception that is very real and genuine to us. All right. So we've been talking about that personal brand, and let's dive into the marketing piece of things. When we first start learning about marketing our business, there is a whole lot of focus on branding your content so that you are recognizable. And the key advice that I see handed out all over the place is you need to have a recognizable logo and a standard color palette so that you stand out. Okay. That is not bad advice, but I want to just point something out here. A recognizable logo doesn't happen because you created something of genius. Coca-Cola's logo was not recognizable for a very long time until Coca-Cola became an international brand. Target, same thing. They had to start somewhere. Microsoft, all these places, they had to start somewhere to become recognizable. So to think that your logo alone is going to create a massive business is just not realistic thinking. You need a good logo that is genuine and authentic to you. And you need some standard colors that you use in your branding, your marketing, your marketing materials and things like that so that you're recognizable. But you don't need to spend a lot of time and effort and stress trying to create that. Okay. They play a role in your branding and your marketing, but it is such a small, tiny role. All right. Your brand is not a logo and a color palette. It is things that help create recognition. Again, the real magic comes when people talk about their experience with you. Okay. So a personal brand, aside from those aesthetics that everybody thinks about, is built on a few key things. And let me share you at least a few of them. Okay. First of all, your voice and tone. What is your natural voice and tone? How do you normally communicate with people? Are you casual? Are you professional and polished? Are you playful or are you direct? Okay. Whatever it is, it's not wrong. This is who you are and this is how you communicate. And the people who appreciate that are the ones that are going to want to reach out and work with you. And they are your dream clients. So think about what your natural tone of voice is. For me, I'm very casual. Before, when I had to try and put on that professional, polished persona when I was in the corporate world, it was really a struggle for me because I'm just a laid back, casual person. And so it wasn't genuine and authentic. Necessary in that particular position, and one of the reasons I left the corporate world, but it's not me. So think about that. All right. The next thing that I want you to consider when it comes to building that personal brand and what you need to build it on is, what are your values? What do you believe in and what do you stand for? Okay. Your audience should know this and understand your values without you having to say, my values are. Now, it's not wrong to put that in say your website or something like that. It's not wrong to share what your values are, but they should be able to understand them without you having to state them. So again, one of my values, core values, is authenticity. For me to stand here before you and say, I believe in authentic communication, really doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot, because a lot of people say that and they're not genuine and authentic in their communications. But for me to just show up as myself, I am who I am. If I were to meet you at a baseball game, you would see the person you see right here and have the same conversation and the same tone of voice and all of those things. So that's what I want you to think about in your values, what is really important to you and how they naturally come out in your personality and how you show up communicating those values without communicating them, essentially stating them outright. Okay. Excuse me. The next thing here is your messaging. And this kind of goes along with that tone of voice, but how you talk is how I write. And that's kind of what we're doing here. If you are on my email list, you're getting an email that sounds very much like I'm talking to it. In fact, I read my emails to my clients because I want to make sure that they feel genuine and authentic and in my voice. So how you talk is part of creating that personal brand. And you do want to make sure that you are clear and compelling and easy to understand. But you also want to make sure that it sounds like you in everything, in your writing, in your social media, in if you go on a podcast, whatever the case is, you got to be yourself. And then the last thing that I want to bring in is what, helps build those personal brands, a powerful personal brand, is your vibe. What makes people feel drawn to you? Are you a no nonsense expert? Like my friend and business coach, Nancy Ganskoffer, she is a no fluff, direct, no nonsense expert in her field. And she's incredible. She's one of the best coaches that I've ever worked at. People are drawn to her because of that, or they don't work with her because of that. Whatever the case is, it's the right fit for her. Maybe you're fun, friendly, and engaging. Okay. I honestly think I'm quite hilarious. My husband disagrees, but I think I'm hilarious. I think it's part of my charm. All right. At least the fact that I think I'm funny is part of my charm, even if others don't think I'm as funny as I do. Maybe you are an inspiring motivator. Now, that's not something I've ever strove for, but it is something I've had a lot of people say, that I can be incredibly motivating and helpful to them. And I'm glad that I'm able to put that out there. That is part of my vibe. The strongest personal brands are always going to feel consistent, not because they are fake and well rehearsed, but because they are fully aligned with you naturally are. Okay. You don't need to craft a personality to put out in the business world. You just need to lean into the one that you already have. Now, there are some things that you can do to refine that personality. First of all, let's take a look. I would say take a moment to do an audit on past content. Okay. Social media posts, blog posts, anywhere where you showed up online. Where did you feel the most yourself? What content felt like the most engaging to you? Like you really felt like it was just you flat out. Chances are that that's also where your audience connected with you the most as well. Okay. Then I want you to ask trusted clients, colleagues, and friends again, like lean into them and ask them to help you fine tune this and ask them to share with you what are some words that come to mind when they think of you. Again, for me, coffee break. People want to have a coffee break with me, or your business bestie. These are things that have come to me multiple times. That's why they're at the core and center of my brand. And as you're gathering this information, you are going to see those patterns emerge and certain themes show up. And that is your personal brand. That is what sets you apart. And that is what makes you engaging to your dream clients. Then the last thing, and when it comes to refining that brand, is I want you to take a moment and choose 3 words that define how you want to show up and want to be perceived. And this is going to be coming after the research, okay? Because, like I said, when Robin mentioned you're their business bestie, like it had never occurred to me, even though I'm in branding, I'm in marketing, I do this for other people, it never occurred to me that that's what I am, but it resonated the instant she said it. Okay. So, with that in mind, I want you to keep something in mind with all of that now that I've shared, I should say. I want you to keep something in mind. Your personal brand often begins before you ever say a word to somebody. We talked about this in our last episode. Your personal brand begins before you even have a conversation with somebody. Okay. Your first impression that somebody has of you, whether it's online, especially when it's online, is going to happen fast and within seconds. So, what people say about you begins the second they discover you, whether it's on your website or on social media, whatever it is. So, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what does my digital presence say about me right now? Okay. And does it say what you want it to say? Does your bio clearly state who you help and what you do? Do you, um, let me get a sip of coffee here. Okay, sorry. Does your content, I can feel a cough coming up. Does your content feel like the real you, or are you trying to sound like somebody else? And are you showing up as somebody or as somebody you yourself would want to connect with? Okay. Your photos, your headlines, the way you show up on social media, it should all feel like a genuine extension of who you are. Because if somebody lands on your page, reads your website copy, checks out your Instagram, and they don't get an idea of who you are, they aren't going to around for long. In fact, they're probably not going to go to multiple sources to try and figure out who they are. They need to connect with you instantly. So that first impression really, really does matter. Okay. The last thing that I would ask you to ask yourself is, as you audit your own digital presence, take a moment and say, would you follow yourself? If not, then something needs to change. If you don't want to be your own follower, then you're not showing up genuine and authentically, and you're not going to build a sustaining business. That is the reality. You may have some short-term success, but it's not going to be long-term if you don't show up as the real you. The thing that I want you to know is that people, they don't just buy from businesses. They buy from businesses, but they connect with people. Let me clarify that. People buy from businesses, but they connect with people. And before they invest in what you have to offer, they want to know who is the person behind the business, because no one wants to work with a faceless brand. Okay. They want to know what they're getting into. They want to know they can trust you. It is vulnerable often to work with somebody in a very big way that impacts our world. And so we need to know who they are. They want to know your story. Why are you doing what you do? And honestly, why should they trust you? That has to be something you bring to the surface. And they want to know what makes you different. Why should they choose you over anyone else in the world? As I said earlier, there are a lot of amazing web designers out there, but no one does the job quite like me. That is why I'm the perfect fit for some people and why Robin or Kate are incredible fits for other people. Now, finally, I want you to, as you're looking at all this stuff and really thinking about what you want to create, ask yourself, am I making my brand about me or just my services? If all of the content that you are putting out there is strictly business, if you are not showing up as the human side of your brand, you are missing out on a huge opportunity to build trust. Okay. How people, sorry, I can feel that cough coming up. Let me take another little sip. I might edit that little section out, so it'll be a weird blip. Okay, so let's think about how do you bring more of you into your brand? First of all, start sharing some personal insights, not just the work content that you do, but give people a reason to connect with you beyond what you have to offer. Use your actual voice in your emails, your captions, your messaging, your blog posting, wherever you show up, whether it is you're talking or writing, use your actual voice and just be yourself. Okay. Your English teacher is not grading your content, so you don't have to write a term paper. You just need to show up as yourself. Show some behind the scenes moments. Maybe it's a messy desk. Maybe it's a work in progress or a personal win. Maybe it's you sipping coffee. Whatever the case is, people want to see the human side of your business. And remember, people don't just buy services, they buy confidence, they buy trust, and they are buying you. All right. So before we wrap up today, let's take a look at the 5 biggest personal branding mistakes that I have encountered over the years, that I've made a few of them myself, and that I see time and time again. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how to avoid this. Okay. So the first one, and this is a big one that I see, especially for new entrepreneurs, is you're trying to be everything to everyone. Okay. Here is the reality, my friends. You do not need to appeal to everyone. You need to just appeal to the right people. When you try to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one. And that is true. I know it doesn't feel true early on. You think you're being accommodating. You think you're being kind. You think you're being friendly. You think you're opening doors rather than shutting down opportunities. I get it. But the reality is this: when you try to speak to everyone, you are speaking to no one because you're not appealing to anyone. You sound like every other person on the block. Okay. And it's not helpful. The next mistake that I see happening a lot, and this I see primarily with very brand new businesses, is hiding behind a business name. You are a solo entrepreneur, or you are a primary solo entrepreneur like me. You are your brand. I think I have been saying this since I was in business. And the first year that I hid behind my business name and realized that's not working, people wanted me. I discovered that I am my brand. And I have been saying this. I said this in my mastermind groups with friends and all this stuff. You are your brand. People want to see the real you. You got to show up. That means have pictures that are up to date, that look like you, not something from 20 years ago when you thought you looked great. You look fabulous now. Okay. Just own who you are, own where you're at in life, and show up as the real you. Another mistake that I see a lot of people making is trying to sound like everyone else in your industry. Okay, here is something, and this one I run into a lot with my clients. If your messaging is exactly the same as everyone else's, for example, interior designers, I work with quite a few interior designers, and we often start off with the message, I provide luxury interior design. Yep, so does a lot of other people. When your messaging sounds like everybody else, you are never going to stand out. You need to lean into what makes you different. Okay. You may still do luxury interior design, but what about you? Your process helps you stand out from everyone else in the world who does luxury interior design. Okay. Mistake number 4 that I see happening on a pretty regular basis is ignoring the consistency. If your voice, visuals, and messaging are all over the place, people are not going to recognize you. If you are showing up as this polished professional one day and a beach going hippie the next day, people don't know who you are. A strong brand is recognizable at a glance, and that is important. And it matters how you show up. Here's a funny example. I'm going to take a side note and share with you guys. So early on in my business, I had crazy curly hair, and I was known. My curly hair was part of my brand. It was really interesting, and I didn't realize it at first, but people recognized me because of my crazy curly hair. At one point, my daughter and I, my daughter's a cosmetologist, and she was playing with my hair. She straightened my hair. So I showed up and did some pictures and video with straight hair. And it caused some crazy reactions from my clients. Like, they did not recognize me and they did not like it. Now, unfortunately, cancer took my curls. Sorry, ladies, my curls are gone. Not my fault. I have to embrace what God has given me now. But back then, this was probably about 8 years ago, it was some crazy repercussions because I showed up with straight hair one day. Okay. That is the power of a personal brand. People get familiar with what they know. And when you change it, especially if you're changing it all the time, they're not going to know you and recognize you. They're not going to connect with you. The last thing that I want to share is one of those biggest mistakes, and that is forgetting your why. Your story, your passion, your personality. These are all the things that make your brand magnetic, that draw your dream customers to you. So don't lose sight of that. Embrace the real you and show up as you are. Final thoughts on today's episode is, once again, I want to say, your personal brand is your most valuable asset. People are buying from people, so don't be afraid to show up as the real you. They want to connect with you, and you don't need to be perfect. You really don't need to be perfect. That isn't even achievable or realistic. You just need to be consistent, and you just need to be real. So, my friends, what do you want to be known for? Are you showing up in that way? If you're not, and you think you need a little guidance, hop on my calendar. Let's have a conversation. Every call starts with just free conversation, and I would love to connect with you. All right. Next week, we're going to be diving into more aspects of marketing, particularly relationship marketing, because that is one of the keys to success. And I can't wait to share what I've got for you next week. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope to see you next week. And as always, reach out, connect. I am here and I love connecting with all of my listeners. So thanks so much for coming. Thanks for tuning in to the Solo Grind. I hope this episode brought you some inspiration and encouragement. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and feel free to share. For more tips and insights, visit caffeinecreative.io to check out my blog or explore the Creative Vault, my free course library. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear how this episode has helped you.